Welcome into TWMP Daily. I'm Scott Faughn, joined by the person who represents where we are in this very studio, Representative Dave Griffith from Jeff City. Representative, thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
You are a very, very busy legislator, frequently around veterans issues, but not exclusively, and you've identified a problem and you've got a solution for it. Tell me about House Bill 399.
House Bill 399 this is the second year that I've carried this bill, and it really came to my attention when my veteran service officer came to me and told me about these companies that are out there that are charging veterans to file their claims for them. And we looked at a bill that was passed out of New Jersey, really where I got the genesis for what I was going to put in my bill when I talked to our research folks. And really what it says is that it bans them from operating in the state of Missouri. These companies, for a lot of veterans, it takes them a while before they actually decide that they want to sit down with a veteran service officer. Most of them, like a real good example of this because I said, somebody else needs the money more than I do. And it took my wife 10 years, I won't say nagging,
Wow.
but of coaching me and getting me to the point where I would sit down in front of a veteran service officer just to find out what benefits I had that were coming to me. When I started off, I started off at 10% for tinnitus. I've had a ring in my ears ever since 1967 from spending time on artillery range and firing range. And it progressed up to where now I'm at 60%. But for a lot of veterans, once they get to the point where they want to talk to a veteran service officer and find out what benefits are available to them, they're not patient. Most of them are grumpy old men that have decided that, all right, since I'm going to do it, let's do it, and let's do it now. And it takes 159.5 days on average for a claim to be adjudicated with the VA. From the time that you sit down with the veteran service officer and the collecting of information, going through the doctor's appointments, and going through what steps they go through before you find out how much you're going to get. These companies are coming in, and they're actually advertising that, Scott, we can guarantee you 100%. You're going to go from no benefit at all to 100%.
Which is not real, right?
Which is not real. And it's a lie. And it's illegal. But they are convincing them that we are faster than the VA because we're going to look at your claim and we're going to handle it personally. Veteran Service Officer has got a lot of claims that they're dealing with, and they're overworked, underpaid, but we can do it faster. But we are going to charge you. And one company in particular, Veterans Guardian out of North Carolina, they'll charge you 5 times the benefit. And so if you go from, worst case scenario, if you go from 0 to 100% and you get a little over $4,000 a month, they're going to take $20,000. They're going to take your first 5 months of your pay, which you have earned and deserve. And really the red flag came up when Colonel Taylor was testifying in my hearing, and he said, and if they can't afford to pay it all at once, I've got a payment plan for them. And they can take as much as 20 months to pay us back, and at no interest. But
no interest?
No interest. And so in January 26th of this year, the VA sent a letter out to all the VFW posts, American Legions, DAVs, and all those folks to warn them about these companies. And the bullet points of what they had to say is that they're not accredited. They can become accredited if they want to, but if they do, they can't charge you. They downplay the VA accreditation. They're saying it's not a really big deal. You don't need to be accredited in order to file the forms, which is you don't have to, but they don't. On the form they're filling out, you will never see their signature anywhere on that form. Now, if you have a veteran service officer that fills it out, the veteran service officer's name and numbers and his accreditation numbers are on there. Now, the benefit of using a VSO is that the VSO can tell you exactly where your claim is. I'm one of those. I think I'm patient, but as I get older, I'm maybe not as patient as I was before. But I can call my veteran service officer up and I can say, Troy, where is my claim? And he can get my Social Security number and plug it into the system, and he can tell me exactly where it is throughout the process.
So where's the bill at right now?
Well, the bill is being heard by Ben Keithley's Gen Laws Committee. my good friend Sean Pouchet filed what we call the guardrail bill.
I like that, Sean. He's always that upbeat. I like that guy.
He is. Love his voice, too.
Yeah.
I can't start smoking as much, I think, but no, just kidding.
With Jack Buck one time, he was at the Missouri Athletic Club, in the Jack Buck Club, and this young guy came up and he said, Mr. Buck, I want to be just like you one day. What's one piece of advice that you'd give me? And he said, he took his truck off his cigarette, he goes, start smoking, kid.
But Sean filed a bill to where it would allow that, where it would allow 5 times. So it's a guardrail bill to where it can only be a one-time charge. They've got to be upfront about what they can and can't do. And so Keith Lee wanted to hear my bill, and he wanted to hear Sean's bill, and then let the committee make the decision as to which one they felt was best. And Rusty Black's got the same bill over in the Senate. It actually passed out of Moon's committee unanimously, passed out 5-0, because they are very convincing. They are saying, and actually Rusty's son used this veteran guardian company, and he's very pleased with them. So if you're willing to do that, they feel like you should have the right to do that. And while I agree to a certain extent on that, for a lot of these veterans, and a lot of these companies that are out there, they're not only charging one time, but they're charging every time that your benefit gets increased. So mine went from 10% to 40% to 60%. So they would get at 5 times each time. Now, like I said, all these companies are not alike. I mean, there are some that are that will sit down with either former veteran service officers that have retired.
And it can be frustrating going through the bureaucracy. Bureaucracy. It is, a lot of fluorescent lights and a lot of hurry up and waits. And speaking of hurry up and waits, so this bill comes out of Ben Keeley's committee. Tell me what's going on with these rules committees. These things have seemed to be had good intention when they started. They seem to be going off the rails a little bit.
Well, Brenda, most of my bills have been going through Brenda's committee.
I'll bet you're not mad about that.
And no, I'm not mad about that. Except if I've got an education bill, and then if she doesn't agree with it, then I might not hear it. But Brenda is fair, and Brenda was in my class, so we're seniors together, very good friends, and I have the most respect for.
Okay, tell me about cups. What's up with that?
Well, cups, I think. And I saw a video. John Combest over the weekend put a TikTok video together.
Which is hilarious.
Did you see that?
I did. Featured Carrie Engel. I thought it was awesome.
Yeah.
Look, I thought when he named the state fair stuff after Bishop Davidson, I thought that was funny. And like, if I'm the speaker, it's hard for me to be mad about something that's that clever and funny. And I think most folks took it as, well, he's not happy, but they took it a little lightheartedly. I think it hits folks a little different, and especially if you're a member of the House. If you're really using random ways to do government business, I think you cross into where it's like flipping off the speaker to name stuff after his buddy. It's like double bird, Stone Cold Steve Austin level flipping him off at this point, right? If I was you, I'd be frustrated in the sense that you don't get to act that way, right? And I think if I was you, I'd be a little frustrated by the situation.
Well, and I think it's kind of funny because Rudy's got a bill that's going to be coming through Scott's committee, and he says, "So Scott, will you not put my name in the barrel there? Just hear mine." So
did he get it done?
Tongue in cheek. I don't know. I think that
those things meet every day. I don't know much about the House procedure.
We meet 3 or 4 times. This time of year, we meet 3 or 4 times a week. And if you've ever been to a rules committee, you need to get there early because they're over pretty quick. I mean, we go right through them unless there's controversy.
Are you on a rules committee?
I am. I'm on Brenda's rules committee. And I was on rules last year. I was on Francis. I was on his rules. I was vice chair of that last year.
Well, most of the time, they're just to make sure the bill's in good form, right? It doesn't have any obvious
errors. There's just one more chance for one more eyes to look at it, another group of people to look at it and digest it to see kind of what it thinks before it goes to oversight. And I think the process we've got, and this is really when I talk about initiative petition reform, when those people file the initiative petition, there's none of that process that goes through. Yeah. And when we file something that's going to change the Constitution, it goes through a lot of process before it actually gets to the ballot where the people are going to look at it.
What's going to happen with abortion before it's over? I mean, I feel like the Senate has some. It feels like right now there's a pitched battle, and I've talked to leaders in the pro-life cause on both sides of this battle. that there's two different mindsets. One is to try to go back and outlaw every abortion, period, similar to what the law was a year ago. Then there's another group that says, I don't think that passes. We want to win, so we're going to have a few exceptions. And then I think that gets, because I mean, to me, I think the people of Missouri are kind of like watching a tennis match. It's just here and here. I think, the pro-life folks took it a little further than they were. Then the pro-choice folks now have taken it further.
Agree.
I'm not sure the people of this state, the majority of them, are where either side is. I think there's a middle ground somewhere. I'm not the expert to find it. What ultimately, it feels like you've got some folks that believe the good's the enemy of the perfect, and you have some folks that believe the perfect won't pass anyway. So what's the point?
I think you're exactly right.
Ozark equalizer.
I think you're exactly right. I think that for a lot of us, and I'm pro-life, but I also think that there's some wiggle room that would be in there to where if it's incest, if it's rape, I think that the part that I really don't like about Amendment 3 is that anybody could do an abortion, and if something
There's
goes
a lot of
wrong,
issues with Amendment 3 that
well,
I really think if we just let's say we's over at Veets having dinner this evening, I think a lot of the folks at Veets would see a lot of problems with some of the stuff in Amendment 3, and like all this. And I'm never one to blame the courts, but I do think that when they let Clean Missouri take two, now I'm sure legally they're not, but common sense wise, if we said at Veets, gerrymandering and ethics reform for legislators, by whether they can buy you a sandwich or not, is different things. They let them combine them. And I think it's opened the door. As I understand, if the door's been opened, you walk through it. It's your best shot for your clients. But I do think there's multiple subjects and the ballot candy and all that, which the Republicans then decided, okay, we'll ballot candy ours. And now the Democrats don't like the ballot candy. But, I mean, I've told Flat Doug, the truth is the Democrats started the ballot candy thing. I mean, now everybody's getting fat on it, right?
They are. And I think that there's common ground that can be had, and I think that's what the bills that I see that are progressing through the House and the Senate. I think that we're trying to clean up some of it. I don't think that we're going to go the route where all abortions are going to be.
And I think you have to draw a fine line between the courts and the fine people that administer those courts.
They are, and I really thought I thought the Supreme Court would rule on something by now, but they haven't.
So. To me, what ends up, ultimately, what's going to be the House's position? Because I think the Senate, I almost think it's baked in. They're going to try to put something on the ballot, probably using every legislative measure, including the PQ, to do it. I think that if you put a no exceptions, I'm not sure the Democrats in the Senate, I think almost go, oh, you want a no exceptions bill on the ballot? Let's do this again. We'll run it back. I think they're confident they'll win. Now, whether they will win or not, you tell me. But I think what might happen, and I've watched a few of these. I personally think there should be another IP. I don't think the folks are where this law is either. I didn't think the folks are where the law was before. I don't think they are now. But it seems to me like the Democrats are very willing for a reason because they think they'll win. I tend to think they'll win too, don't you?
Well, if we go for total rolling completely back, I think they probably will. But,
one thing I think we're going to learn, I thought they did a great job closing the gap at the end. If that campaign had 2 more weeks, I think the pro-life side might have won that. They really got their act together at the end. But I think one thing they're going to find in next August is it's much, much harder to get a yes than a no.
Yep.
Getting the yes in Missouri is always so hard. The no is much easier to get.
Well, and you say, then a lot of these people say the will of the people. Well, the will of the people, out of the 114 counties, 7 counties passed that bill. So you got 107 counties that said no to that bill. My district said no to that bill. And so when I represent, and that's who I represent, are the people in the 60th. And so when I look at it, that's who I'm sticking with. And I got a phone call last week from a very, very good friend. She's no longer a friend of mine, according to her, because of what I did with Amendment 3 and kind of the way I'm voting. It's a shame when politics gets down to that level where friendships and families are being divided because of it.
Well, look, if you're counting your friends and enemies because of how someone's politics falls, I almost feel sorry for you.
Yeah.
I mean, that ain't no way to be.
No.
You and I, and I've known you since before you were in the legislature, and how you voted won't impact our friendship today or ever, because it's your decisions. I mean, you're the one who got elected. You have a right to your opinion, just like all your constituents do. Let me tell you this interesting thing. Speaking of your district, municipal elections are tomorrow here in Jefferson City, all through the state, but here tomorrow as well. Let me. It's been odd to me watching these municipal elections. I would not have thought there would have been the real progressive movement in the city of Jefferson that there is in these municipal races. There's really stark differences. You have Republicans and they're pretty conservative, and then you have a very progressive wing. And again, maybe they're right and I'm wrong. I always hold up. I mean, I don't have all the answers to anything, but I was surprised in a town like this that the progressive movement would be so active, and it seems really only be active in April.
Well, and I think that what they're trying to do, starting on a local level in the council, they started really with the school districts in running for different positions on the school district and trying to change that dynamic as well. I think that really the representation needs to represent the entire city as a whole, and I think we are pretty.
Which would include some progressive voices, obviously.
There are.
I mean, they get elected.
But I think they're trying to say that Jefferson City is now turned purple, and it's not. I mean, it's still a red.
I think it's purple in April.
Red.
I don't think it's purple in August or November.
No, it's not. But in April, it is.
Do you think that these races should just be on the November ballot? Do you think that just makes things easier?
I do.
I think the school board races have worked pretty well. But then you look at Francis Howell. Now, I'm sorry. It feels to me like Francis Howell, like Webster Groves, they're as left as their people are. Their people are very left. I'm not sure places like Francis Howell, I think that school's further left than the public is. And I think if those elections were in August or in November, I mean, because I think also we really don't have general elections in this state anymore. I mean, if you're a blue county, you have blue folks. St. Louis only has 3 or 4 things that are county races. We have county elections, but they're over in the primary. I mean, if you really looked at if you were talking about the length of the ballot, that's one thing. Peggy might have a difference of opinion on this. She knows more about it than I do. But as far as like a race you have to spend any of a voter's time thinking about, in November, you don't really have races that are tough in 99% of this state.
Correct.
I mean, Maggie Nurnberg ran, David Gregory ran competitive general elections. That's it. This time you'll have to replace Searpoint and Lee Summit and to replace Lincoln Huff in Springfield. That will be the extent of the competitive races in November, and that's 2 places out of 34 in the state. So I'm almost with you. I think you might get a better representation of the community when more people in the community are voting, which would be November.
And there was a movement afoot. I think there's even a bill that's been filed this year. I know there was one last year to move that April elections to November. And we had a lot of pushback from
and maybe you start
control.
Just with the cities. Yeah. Maybe you start just with municipal elections, and then the school boards, I think, are going to fight pretty hard to keep their elections in April. I think it's what the problems the Republicans have right now is I had some people coming to me asking about the bill to give you longer voting, like give 3 weeks voting. I tell you, I know Republicans have been against that, and I probably sang the same from the same hymnal. I went around the state in the F-150 tour, and I watched the early voting in these primaries. People want to early vote. And I'll tell you, I'm going to go vote tomorrow in the municipal election. I don't think I have a lot to vote for. But there won't be a line out here at the Performance Center. But I've seen in St. Louis, I've seen for myself, it's a 2-hour wait. They have an app now to tell you where the lines are shorter and longer. You know, Representative, I'm not here to take up for city people. They got, as you know, plenty of folks in your office worried about city folks. It disenfranchises working people to have to stand in the line for 2 hours. It really does.
Well, and I always vote on election day. I mean, that's the way I was raised, that we voted on election day.
Me too. But now it is kind of convenient, and I think folks want it.
It is.
I also think this.
That's where we are now.
If you had 2 weeks of voting, right, I would think the most organized and best funded operations would be very much advantaged to find their people and turn them out. When I think of the most organized, I think of the Republicans. And when I think of the best funded, especially in this area, I think of the Republicans. Why wouldn't Missouri Republicans see, oh, yeah, give us 2 weeks. We'll win all these. I mean, yes, we're going to have to change, which I'm not a person that likes change. But I do think that really if you break it down, the Republicans have an advantage here if they just embrace the concept of early voting's here to stay. It's what it is.
Yes, I agree with you, and I think that's where we are.
And you could do the paper ballots easier. A lot of the core things Republicans want about election fraud, I think are easier done over a 2-week period than in one big rush. I've never met a county clerk that wasn't ready to shoot someone after an election night, especially a primary one. Everybody's bugging them, wanting it, all this, and they're trying to count. Spacing that out over 2 weeks, I think gives you a better chance for transparency. Now, I'm not an election expert, but I do think this. The people of this state want to vote early. They want to vote in shorter lines conveniently. And I've never found it to be good politics to be on the other side of something the people of the state want.
I couldn't agree with you more.
All right. So we got the two. Kathy Harness is running. Everybody at the Capitol knows. I got to host Hal Dooley's show. Everybody else must have been on vacation or busy. So I brought Mark Ellinger in with me, and we hosted Hal's show. Had Kathy Harness on, who is just a wonderful person. I don't know her opponent at all, but whatever Kathy would want to serve on, I bet she'd be great at. And then a person a lot of folks watch know, Erica Chwenka, who's running to replace Scott Spencer. If you know her in the Capitol, conscientious, hardworking. And I do think there's something to be said to have somebody that has kids in the community, somebody that is a young mother in the community. I think that is a perspective, I think, that'll add to that city council. Now, her opponent may be a great person too. I wouldn't know him, but I know Erica, and to me, her perspective would be valuable.
And and Erica would be great in that position. And we're really trying to get more younger people involved in government, and I think this is a great way of doing it. It's a stepping stone for me,
Yes.
Going from city council, going to the House, and then on to the Senate. I think that's a great path to go. That's the path that I went down, and I think that's the.
Were you on the city council?
I was on the city council. I was actually
Nice.
mayor pro tem for a year.
What part of town you live in?
On the east side, 5th Ward. So
East
it's
side.
Morrow Heights.
But so
Morrow
that's
Drive.
not where we are. Jeff Ehlers, I thought, had Edie Vogel was in our area, I think.
Edie was in the 4th.
4th, okay.
Yeah, Edie was in the 4th. I'm trying to think who you would know.
I don't know them all. That's interesting that you served on city council. I was on the
I
city
was elected
council
twice.
myself.
Um,
Then they promoted. So tell me about the Senate race. I've heard you're thinking about not running.
I'm not going to run. No.
You got anybody you're going back?
No, I've told those people. I've had a lot of those that have come to me that say they're going to run for Senate, and want to buy endorsement or wanted me to
Sure.
work with them. And I just, Scott, I don't endorse during the primary. I mean, I'll sit down with you and I'll tell you what I think you need to do to win. But I'm not, and I've kept that policy, I guess, since I got elected.
So break the race down, though. I talked about it with Jake here last week. 53% of the vote would be Colin Monetaw. 47 is the rest of the district. You have two candidates vying, Rudy Veit, your colleague in the legislature, Derek Spicer, a retiring city councilman from Cole County. You got a guy named Ike Skelton from the Lake. The Lake has a bunch of rabble-rousers. Ike Skelton, one of the best. He's got caught up in something, but I think it's a unique situation. Some government entity was taking license plate pictures, which I don't think the government has any business doing. I'm a Boot Hill Republican. We want the government to leave you alone. I don't even think the government needs electricity, if you want the truth. They'll be fine without it. Ike Skelton didn't like that. I think most people wouldn't like that. But he took an extra step. I think he went and took the cameras down, which is, as you can tell by the problems he's having, it's not, Missouri, listen to me, don't take the camera down. Maybe put a sign in front of it, but I think we've learned don't take the camera down. But if he somehow gets out of this, he's going to be a political force.
Well, and I think that they're becoming stronger down there anyway. But I think they have some of the same issues of being unified. I don't think they're as unified as
they're not at all.
And I think that can hurt them.
In Cole County, you've got a couple Facebook folks and folks that chirp and complain, but it's a very limited group of. I mean, it's essentially just 4 or 5 people that chirp that have connected, and then they have the Facebook complaining, which is mostly not even real. The Lake has an absolute organized group of people that are out that do not like the Republican Party, but they're in it for some reason.
Well, they're in it because they know that's the only way they're going to win.
That's about right.
That's exactly why they're in it.
I think Ike Skelton is a name to watch. If he ultimately gets jammed up
just
in
by
this,
his name alone.
Yeah, of course. 90% of people start off thinking, "Oh, Ike Skelton, what a great name." Probably Ike Skelton, the congressman's son. He's not the congressman's son, just to be clear. But I do think if the guy gets out of this trouble he's in, and I sympathize with what his goals were. Probably didn't go about it great. I think he's going to be a political force. He'll have a huge, he'll spin it as all those, like Trump, the government's coming after me, on and on. And I think you break it down, most folks in this part of the state are going to be like, well, the government had no business collecting your license plates in the first place.
Correct.
If he gets in trouble, the way I watch these things, if they hang something on him, then everybody's going to say, well, he did something wrong. But if they don't, I think he's going to be somebody that is going to be a force to be reckoned with. End of the day, do you think that there'll be a deal done between Rudy and Derek, or they're both going to run?
I think they're both going to run.
If they both run, I think if only one of them runs, that person probably wins, right?
Correct.
If they both run, and you have I've heard Lisa Thomas, somebody you served with, but I don't know. I mean, she just came up short to Vernetti. Who just look at this. Vernetti's making dressing and pasta sauce. I think I do think it's going to be interesting to see if there's two candidates from the lake, the Cole County guys, one of them will win. If there's just one and there's two legitimate Cole County candidates, you could see Cole County have a senator for the first time since. I guess you could say Larry Robach was from California, right?
I would say, yeah.
So I think he had Cole County in his district, right?
Right.
But I mean, for a very long time, you've had Cole County's had a senator. They might not for the first time in a while.
And I think that's I don't know, as far as things I'm hearing from the Central Committee, that's really what we want. We want to try to keep that Senate race here in Cole County, in Central Missouri. I know the lake's in Central Missouri, but I know that's the wish of the committee.
Well, there's one guy who could probably sort this out, right? That Kehoe fella.
Yeah.
I do think if he got them two guys in a room, I would say I wouldn't want to be on the other side of Mike Kehoe's wishes in Cole County.
No. And I'm not sure he will get involved, but
I don't know if he will either. But if the person that could sort it out would be the governor. You could maybe sort it out, but you know, there's a leverage to being governor the next 7.5 years that I think would probably be the only person that could really sort that out, if I had to guess. So who's running to replace you?
Well, there's a few names that are out there. Steve Hauser's talked to me. Scott Spencer's talked to me.
Councilman.
Kiera Johnson.
Works for Senator Mosley.
Scott Miller is a name that is kind of new on the horizon. Scott's a former retired colonel of the National Guard.
Oh wow!
So there's four that
I tug at your heartstrings a little bit.
Well, it does.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. That if I was recruiting your endorsement, I might like his odds a little bit, right?
Well, and for a number of reasons, but I think that each one of those, they're friends of mine, and I've talked with them, and I've advised them. Kiera is a really good person.
Yes.
I think she's done a great job. I think she's got an uphill battle, and she knows it. But I think the key thing of really winning District 60 is the amount of work you're willing to put in. But if you want to knock doors,
some
really
guy told me he's running against you, and I'm like, you're running against like now? I was like, are you running in 2 years when he's term limited? I was like, he's running. No, I'm running. I was like, well, you have no hope. You should save your fall. Enjoy your Halloween, because this is not real. I think you did the work, but you started off with a very good leg up.
Well, and I think that it goes with my involvement in the community and the volunteer work that I did.
But when you're done, you're not done. You'll be around veterans issues.
I'm going to do something.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is.
It seems like you'll have plenty of opportunities to serve if that's what you choose to do.
My wife wants me to do that.
Well, she does.
Yeah, she wants me
out of the house.
I don't think she wants me in the house. So.
Well, it is funny. As I've watched people that serve in the legislature for 8 years, they come home. Their spouses are really happy with them being home until the holidays, and then they're used to getting a reprieve, and that reprieve's not coming. And then like, well, why don't you go see your friends for a couple of days in Jeff City? You go back and check things out. So we've talked local races. We've talked the state races. The race to replace Rudy. Who all's in that?
I have not heard of anybody, really. I mean,
I've heard Aaron Gratz a little bit. He'd be great. comes from a long family of serving in the state of Missouri.
I've talked to him, and he's not ready. He's got small
That's what he
kids
kind of
now.
told me, is it just wasn't the right.
But he would be a great candidate. If he
One of the
would-
best candidates Cole County could field is Jake Vogel, and I think he's kind of, I'm interested, but I'm not interested today, right?
Those two names are going to be names for the future.
Yeah.
I think that Jake would be a shoe-in no matter what he
Yes,
chose.
I think you're right.
And for a number of reasons. And he's a really good man. He's a smart, good businessman. But he's also got a good head on his shoulders.
Veteran.
He's a veteran. I mean, Army Ranger, a sniper, for heaven's
Yeah.
sakes. Don't want to mess with him.
Jake's seen things that I can't. I mean, he kind of reminds me of Andrew Bailey. I've found and this is my observation of talking to politicians. People that run for office that maybe didn't do a lot, maybe heard stories, but they weren't in them. They talk all the time. You can't shut them up about it. The people that actually did things, they ain't real keen on talking about it. Take Bill Hardwick. He doesn't just go talk about stuff.
No.
But I've seen from the guys at Fort Leonard Wood, Bill Hardwick's done some things in his life. Andrew Bailey doesn't really like to sit and talk about it, but you just can read about him. I mean, he's seen things that I can't imagine and done things for our country that I frankly wasn't man enough to. I think there's a good bench, but it is a sacrifice. People forget it's a real sacrifice.
Well, and you really need to be all in. And I got to tell you, Scott, I'm going to miss being there because I enjoy what I'm doing there. And I think when you're really being effective, and really find somebody that can step in and kind of take that mantle and move forward with it. I take that very seriously, and I will do everything I can once the primary is over with to support that candidate.
But I mean, they'll win, right?
They'll win.
The only time, I mean, Democrats have some opportunities here locally. I seen they formed an activist group to raise money. That somehow is like at the newspaper supporting it or something.
Well, you got Suzanne Luther's going to run on the Democrat side
sure.
for House.
Well, that'll be great.
And
I think it's a good thing. Like when the Democrats talk about filling these ballot seats, good for them. To me, if you don't want to go run the campaign, don't sign up. I think it's a good thing, and I think it maybe makes the Republicans work a little harder, be a little more conscientious. I love the fact there's races. I just don't think the Democrats are going to win any of them. Do you?
Well, Sarah Michael was a Democrat in my first election, and she was a very viable candidate.
Very much.
I mean, I think
Yes.
she was to the point where she was talking to Dan Green and saying that she needs to reschedule her trial because she thought she was going to win. But I think the candidates that they've had
Sarah
since
Michael's
then,
a very legitimate person.
she is a very good person.
Yes.
I knocked on her door. As a matter of fact. But I think that the candidates that they've had since then, I think, have not been, and you say the word caliber, but I think
Well, also, if you're going to win, you got to win an open seat, right? Beating
Yeah.
an incumbent, I mean, just statistically doesn't happen often. But I think to me, I saw a bunch of Democrats out. I'm not a protester, but I saw a bunch of Democrats were out protesting this weekend.
Saturday.
Good for them. To me, as long as you don't block the damn road, I got no time for that. I mean, I'm trying to get to work or something, leave people, don't. But you go out there in the courthouse protest all day, every day. Good for you, man.
Well, my wife and I drove.
respect that. I don't agree with them necessarily, but I respect them out there doing that. It was cold Saturday.
My wife and I drove by there, and she was shaking her head, and I said, that's what makes America great.
Yes.
I mean, being able
Good
to
for them,
stand
man.
up there and in
Who's
the rain.
that dude that stands out in front of the Supreme
Post
Court
office?
building or post office and waves
Yep.
that Earth flag?
Yep,
Who's that
the
guy?
peace flag. I don't know who he is, but he's there all the time.
Good for him, man.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not a protesting type unless we protest the designated hitter, which I'd be all in for. If the Democrats added their platform, consider me in. But I've never really done protesting, but good for those folks, right? Go protest.
Amen to that.
I'm not sure. I always tell folks that talk about an approach to the Capitol, I was like, well, let me just tell you, you're going to do more harm than good. No one's going to care. You're going to be annoying. No one's going to want to talk to you. Nobody believes that you're from Webster County or wherever you're going to say you're from. But it's your right to do, and you should go do it.
Yep.
I said, see if hey, maybe you're the one who it works for, right? I remember when they cut Medicaid, there were people chaining themselves to the Capitol and all that. Didn't change anything, but I mean, good for them. By the way, Missouri, don't chain yourself to the Capitol. This is not the Cubs. Is not a good move. Just go ahead and hold your signs, and and see if it works. First time for everything. Representative, I appreciate it. House Bill 399, trying to essentially regulate some of these groups that are providing, trying to help folks with veterans benefits, but for a fee, you want them regulated, right? At the end of the day.
I do, and I want them gone.
Gone? Can you get them gone or can you get them regulated?
There is a way that there's a path that they could be regulated. There's a
Yeah.
path that they could do what they could do, and that's to become certified. And if you, there is a fee that you can charge.
You're certified by the VA?
Certified by the VA.
Okay.
And there is that path you can go down. And there are some parameters where you can charge, but they got to be making a lot of money for a guy that lives in North Carolina to fly out here 4 times to testify against a bill. There's got to be some money in there somewhere. And I've always said follow the money, and you're going to find where the real issue lies.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense to me that you need some kind of, if they're gonna do that service that should be provided by the federal government for free. But federal government ain't exactly a real stable operation right now. So,
Well, and people have asked me, when I worked and I had employees working for me, and I would have an employee come in to complain about something that was going on inside the company. My first question was, so what is your solution? So what is your fix?
yeah,
And so I don't want to come forward and say that, and speak bad about all this without having a fix. So my fix is that we fully fund the Missouri Veterans Commission. We hire more veteran service officers to be able to handle the number of veterans that are filing for claims.
is that what the VLT bill would do? Would it help fully fund it?
See, Scott, every time we want to try to find something, we try to find something that's a vice that's going to help veterans. What we need to do is buck up and just make them part of GR. We need to have $50 million set aside that's going to run the homes, the cemeteries, the service officers, and the veterans, the suicide manager.
You have to go shake Dirk and get pennies fall out of his pockets.
And I've been on this crusade for the last 6 years, and I'm going to continue that as long as I'm there, because that's where we were promised. We were promised back in '94 when Carnahan took money from the Veterans Foundation to fund the No Child Left Behind. He made the promise that he's going to return that money to us, and it never has happened. And I don't expect them to return all that money. What I am expecting them to do is to take care of the veterans, because when you raise your hand in service to our country, you make a promise to the country. The country also makes a promise to you.
Sure.
And I had somebody tell me not long ago, well, Missouri didn't make that promise. Missouri did make that promise. They made that promise 20 years ago when we had veterans homes. We started the 7 veterans homes. We made the promise that when they get to that point in their life where they need to be taken care of, we'll be there for them. And those homes are 20 years old. The roofs need to replace. HVAC's gone bad.
Yep.
So let's buck up and do what's right.
Representative, I appreciate the time very much. I want to thank the good folks up at United Fiber in the Great Northwest, and then the Courtyard by Maryland in your district, right?
Correct.
You're going to bring your family up. Don't be cheap. Don't go Ryan McKenna on people and try to go Capital Planet. Go to the good hotel. If it's your kin folks, if it's worth having them up here, spend the extra money. Do it right. Then I'll be interested to see which way the city turns. Do they turn more progressive? Do they turn more conservative? It is an interesting place, and I think it's a very good argument for November city council elections, regardless.
Well, and it's really sad, though, when they're predicting that 10% of the population are going to elect somebody.
Well, but I get it. I mean, if you're busy raising a family, working a job, and you have a city council race that really isn't as big a deal as maybe you think the presidential race is or something, I understand people being busy. I get it. I wish they weren't. But I do think in Jeff City they do a pretty good job of giving you access to vote. I think being able to go vote places, they're open, they're pretty easy to work with. I thought they dealt very well with early vote. I early voted with my son at the courthouse. I thought, for the situation they had, I thought they did a good job. And at least we're not Columbia, where preachers are stealing people's signs.
Right, yes.
I love a man, Scott Charton. He's been all over this mayor's race. My responses are, well, Columbia people are weird, and he doesn't respond to that. He'll send me something weird that Columbia has done that's weird. I'm like, yeah, people are weird up there. I mean, we'll see. Then we be very interesting Senate race, and I hope you'll come back and talk with us about it and what you're going to do next here on This Week in Missouri Politics.
All right.
Thanks, sir. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
We'll be back probably Wednesday for another TWMP Daily. We'll see what's going on in the legislature and go from there. Thanks for having us.